I was going to begin this video saying this is for college students, but then I realized the topic is probably pretty much for anyone. But I have taught in my college courses for over a decade, and I loved my students. I loved that age group. They're adults legally, but they're sponges for tell me something that I should want to learn from. And I loved my evals because they'd say, I learned more in your class than I learned in any other class. But you know why? Because I was teaching relationship classes. They cared more about me helping them with their future spouses and their dating and their love lives than they cared about calculus or whatever other stupid class they had to take in the university. Sorry, my colleagues. But we all are human people and care about, it's the what's in it for me, but I want to know how to have a healthy relationship. They heard everything because all of us, this is our number one desire in life, to be loved and to love and to be loved. So one of the most exciting conversations we had, and I'd have this conversation every semester, was about, all right, people think sex outside of marriage is fine. Let's talk about it. So what I'd like to start with is, if you're a Christian and you already know that sex outside of marriage is a sin, let's put that on the table. You and I know that. But when I'm teaching in an urban inner city university that is extremely diverse, then everybody is not necessarily Christian. Everybody's certainly not middle class. Everybody is not the same ethnicity. So we had a lot of different backgrounds, but we always had men and women. And as you and I know, there's only two genders. So when I would talk about sex outside of marriage, most all of them were having it, which was really sad, because the occasional virgin, when they'd write their paper, they would ashamedly say, well, I'm a virgin, but no one knows it. And that would make me so sad, because as I've said many times before, when did that happen? 50 years ago, it was the person who wasn't a virgin that was ashamed to tell everyone. Look at Greece. They had the one girl who everybody's been with, and she was the one that got mocked. But today, it's turned around. The person who hasn't had sex is the one who's the odd man out, or the odd woman out. So as I'd ask in my classes, why sex before marriage? I remember one young kid, 18, he's like, why bother? Everyone's going to do it anyway. So why? There's nothing wrong. And I was like, is everybody going to do it anyway? So the conversations were rich. I'd talk about, so you're an animal and you have no self-control. Well, I do, but why should I? It's nothing wrong with it. Okay. So then we get into the conversation about, let's talk about the pros and the cons of having sex outside of marriage. Again, if you're Catholic, if you're a Christian and you know it's a sin, that's the biggest con of all. You're going to offend God. But I didn't even let that come on the table because, well, I did if my students themselves put it out there. But for the most part, I said, let's keep the religious parts out. Let's look at this just plain old with secular eyes. Okay, so con, you could get pregnant. And most people were contracepting. Said, okay, so you could get pregnant. And they all agree that was a con, especially when they didn't want to. You could get an STD. That was another negative. Another negative is you sometimes feel used. That was mostly the girls. I'd have so many girls cry to me. Another part, and I have to be careful because YouTube has shut down some of my videos, the females, 85% of the time, and this is a statistic, do not reach climax. I don't know if this is going to get shut down. So a male can complete the sexual act 100% of the time, but the females don't. I talked to them about the differences of having sex within marriage. You're much more likely to reach that climax as a female than you are outside of marriage, because the male is more concentrated on pleasing you. In this hookup culture, men are not. It's all for one and one for all. I get mine, you get yours. So these conversations, could you imagine 18 to 22, 25, even sometimes 30-year-olds? So far we've got this list of cons. You could get pregnant, you could get an STD, you could feel used. You didn't really even make it there sexually. They don't know your name. Oh, I'm going to do a video and tell you about the rules to hookups. I've done a radio show about that. Left me in tears. Some of the sad things. It's important for whoever wakes up first has to leave so that you don't have to pretend you have a relationship. It's so sad. So we listed all these things. Your parents would get upset. You'd have to get out of college if you got pregnant. You'd have to have an abortion, quite possibly. You'd have to contemplate having an abortion. You'd have to live with the consequences of abortion. That side was filled. And I said, what are the pros? Well, it feels good. And again, that climax answer went over there. It's like, well, for the women, feels good, but they don't fully make it there. So even that wasn't a full answer. And apart from feeling good, they'd have to stop and think. Because sometimes they didn't respect themselves. I had one girl called me. I had her, we teachers have our groupies, the ones that take all of our classes. And one beautiful young soul had taken so many of my classes. She'd call me at 11 o'clock at night and, could you talk, Dr. Bacon? She said, I fell into that same trap. I felt like I was going to be loved. I knew I shouldn't. And I let this man come into me and he left. And I felt feeling empty again. Over time she realized, the daddy wound, but she still kept leaning into that situation. I haven't talked to her in a while, so hopefully she's really coming into her own beauty and learning you don't have to give that away for free. But whether you're a male or a female, if you really sit down and look at the pros and the cons, the only pros to having sex outside of marriage is a temporary physical pleasure that often leaves us feeling empty, used, scared. We disrespect ourselves sometimes. And even for those of us who are like, yeah, I'm not there. You're going too radical, Christine. We talk about self-control. Well, I don't have it. There's this beauty to having self-discipline, self-control. Any of you that go to the gym, any of you that work out, any of you that fast, you know how good you feel that day after your fast has ended, that day after your training, and you succeeded. We've lost that in our society. The virtues, one of the virtues is temperance, self-control. And we all go all in quickly, no control to our impulses, no controls to our fleshly desires. And it leaves us wanting. So I ask you, what do you think are the pros to having sex outside of marriage? I'd love to know if you can add to this list, because I really can't think of any apart from physical, temporal pleasure and excitement. For many of the males, it's the thrill of the hunt. I get another one. I get another one. And that was another fun conversation, was why is it different for men than women? Because women love being pursued more so than men. And men prefer to be the pursuers. So with the sexual revolution coming out saying, oh, we should have control of it, women weren't seeking sex 24/7. So once they just opened the floodgates, yeah, I'll control it. All they were doing was giving what the guys wanted anyway. That didn't work out so well now, did it? I protected it. I had something they wanted, and now I gave it away, and now it's not so valued. So I don't have it anymore. And they're happy. So what did I gain? What was so revolutionary about that? I feel cheap and used. So again, post here below, what are the upsides to having sex outside of marriage? Again, I know this is a primarily Christian audience, and we know that fornication is a sin. But I'd love for you to share this with the teenagers, college students, and any of you watching. What are your thoughts? Are there really benefits to having friends with benefits? Are there really benefits to hooking up? Someone use you for their pleasure and then they're gone. If you think that's fun, I do want to know. I want to hear. Do you feel peace? Are you glad you did it? Are you happy? Are you like, I am no longer a virgin. I'm so happy. I want to know. Because maybe I'm the jaded one. All I want to do with this video is open your minds. Get you thinking. Stop being impulsive. Because we got to stop just being animals. We've got to be intellectual, God-fearing adults. And try to figure out then, ultimately, what does God want me to do? We'll save that for another video. I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. Hope you've enjoyed this informational bacon bit. I want to remind you, as always, to live your life sunny side up.